this is the fourth video and the final video in the lover archetype from our series. And I recommend you listen to the first 3 videos in this series as well to fully understand the archetype of the lover. Now, there is a moment in a man's life, if he is lucky, if he is brave, if he has done enough of the real work, when something shifts. Not dramatically, not with fanfare, but quietly in his body, like a door that has been locked for a very long time, finally opening from the inside. He stops running. Not because he has resolved everything, but because, and not because also the wound inside of him is gone, maybe, or the hunger has disappeared, or the old patterns have been fully dismantled. No, not because of that, but because he has finally turned around and faced what he has been running from, and discovered that it did not destroy him. That moment, that turning, is where the lover is born. And I've seen this time and time again working with men who have this archetype. I'm not talking about the adolescence lover. I'm not talking about the addicted lover or the impotent lover, which we talked about in the last, in part 3. The mature lover, the integrated lover, the men who can feel fully and act wisely, who can love deeply and hold boundaries clearly, who can be moved by beauty and remain grounded in his truth. Today we are going into how a man gets there. And let me tell you, it is not easy for men to get there. It is more simple for women to do the inner shadow work because of our nature, that we are the darkness as well as the feminine. It's easy for women to go into their shadows and face their own demons, so to speak. For men, it's a lot harder. And this is why, for myself, working with men and working with women is a completely different dimension. So let's continue with this archetype. So the constancy principle. So what devotion actually means, what has to die, what becomes possible, and what this man gives to everyone around him when he finally arrives. Let's talk about that. So I want to start by redefining a word that has been almost entirely stripped of its real meaning. Constancy. Most people hear that word and think fidelity, monogamy, sexual exclusivity. And while constancy includes those things in their deepest form, it is much larger than that. Constancy is the practice of directing your desire with devotion rather than letting it scatter. Let me say that again. It is the practice of directing your desire with devotion rather than letting it scatter everywhere. The adolescent lover, and remember, adolescence here in the psychological state, not an age, right? We're not talking about specific age of a man. It's where he is in a psychological state. Believes that desire should always be followed wherever it leads. That the presence of attraction to someone new means something, that the fading of initial intensity means the relationship has run its course. That's a little boy thinking, right? That's the adolescence. That commitment is a cage rather than a container. And we see obviously men in all ages are still stuck in their adolescence phase. So this is the lover without the king. Feeding because he's feeling, but he doesn't have direction. He has desire, but he doesn't have the wisdom. The mature lover understands something completely different once he reaches this point. He understands that scattered desire keeps a man perpetually adolescent. That the man who is always half present, 1 foot in, 1 foot scanning for what else might be available, never goes deep enough anywhere to find what he's actually looking for. And what he's actually looking for cannot be found on the surface. It lives in depth, in the willingness to stay, to be grounded, to be present, to be known over time, to commit, actually commit, to allow another person and himself to become fully real rather than remaining projection, a fantasy, a mirror for his own unmet needs. Constancy is not the suppression of desire, it is the maturation of it. Now, the integrated lover does not stop feeling attracted to beauty, not at all. He does not become blind to the feminine in all its forms, but he has developed the capacity to feel without immediately acting, to be moved without being swept away, to hold the full force of his desire and direct it consciously, intentionally towards what he has chosen to love. That is not limitation. That is mastery. And this is something I love to work with men about. Because every man will be attracted to beautiful women all the time. But it's how can you harness that attraction and work with it within the container of your relationship and your specific woman that you've chosen to be your vessel. This is very deep work. It goes very, very deep, this work. And when men take the actual time, it is incredible what comes out in their life for their wife, for their children, for their work, for their, the capacity to make money, for their physical health, etc. Now, before I talk about what the integrated lover gains, I need to talk about what he loses, because this is where most men turn back. The death that is required for the lover to mature is the death of the adolescent's self. And the adolescent self, however much pain he carries, however limited his range, is familiar, right? It's still familiar to him. So this death of the little inner boy is really difficult to achieve. He is the version of the man that has been in charge for a very long time, probably his whole life. He knows how to survive. He knows how to get his needs met, however imperfectly. He has built an entire life around his particular strategies. The addicted lover's pursuit, or the impotent lover's withdrawal, or the kind of like the dance between both of these. Letting that go feels like dying to a man. It's so, so scary, because in a very real sense, it actually is. The man who integrates the lover has to grieve, not theoretically, but actually grieve. The years he spent running from intimacy, the relationships he could not stay present for, the beauty he moved past too quickly, the creative life he abandoned, the version of himself that was always almost there but never fully arrived. He has to grieve the mother who could not give him what he needed. Not to blame her, she was carrying her own wounds, but to stop letting her absence or her overreach continue to write his present. To finally separate the woman in his life from the woman who first shaped his relationship to the feminine. And I cannot tell you, 99% of men I work with, if not all of them, bring the pain of their mother to the woman that they're in right now and project it on the woman that they're with without even knowing it at all. So this man has to stop asking his partner to complete something that was never her wound to heal. He has to grieve the initiation he never received, the elder who was never there, the container that was never built for him, the transmission that was never given. And he has to face his own mortality, because the lover, as we spoke about in the first video, is the archetype most connected to death. And a man who cannot face the fact that his life is infinite, is finite, that the people he loves will be lost, that beauty is precious precisely because it does not last. That man keeps something permanently held back, a reserve, a distance, a part of himself he refuses to fully invest, because full investment means full vulnerability, means the possibility of full loss. The mature lover has sat with that. He felt it in his body. He has discovered, not as a concept, but as a lived reality, that being fully alive is worth the cost of knowing it will end. That grief, that facing, is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing practice, a willingness to keep turning toward what is real rather than retreating into what is comfortable. And on the other side of this is something extraordinary becomes possible. So what does this actually look like in a man's life? Not as philosophy, but as actual practice. So the integrated lover shows up differently in every domain of his life. And I want to walk through each of them because I think that men need to hear this concretely. So we're going to talk about relationships and then creativity. We're going to talk about relationship to beauty, relationship to the feminine, his leadership, and so on. So let's start in a relationship. So in relationship, he stops keeping one foot out. Not because he has suppressed the part of him that notices other women or feels the pull of novelty, but because he has developed the capacity to feel that pull and consciously return. to choose again and again the depth that only comes from staying, to discover that what lies beneath the surface of a long, honest, fully inhabited relationship is richer than anything available at the surface of 100 new ones. He becomes capable of being fully known, of allowing his partner to see the places he had been hiding, the wound, the fear, the need, without converting her seeing into threat, which is what the wounded lover does. This is the most radical act of the mature lover, not performance of intimacy, actual intimacy, the terrifying, extraordinary experience of being met in the real. Now let's talk about what happens to this man in his creativity. His desire finds a channel finally. The scattered creative energy that was always reaching and never landing gathers into something focused and powerful. He finishes things. He commits to a vision and follows it into its depth rather than abandoning it in the moment that it stops being new. Because creativity at its roots is an act of constancy. It is the willingness to stay with something long enough for it to become what it is meant to be. And then the thing is, the wounded lover men, sometimes they get stuck in relationships. Sometimes they get stuck in creativity. Usually most of the time I would say all the time they will get stuck in relationships, but sometimes it will also affect their creativity and their work. Not always though. So in the relationship to beauty, so in his relationship to beauty, he finally slows down. He is more often stopped, more often grateful, more capable of receiving what is present rather than always reaching for what is next, the next high, the next hit. He develops what I would call an erotic relationship with life itself, not in a sexual sense, but in a sense of being fully responsive to the aliveness in things, in nature, in music, in the face of his child, in the quality of light at a particular moment. This is not soft. This is the fullness of being human. And most men live their entire lives at a fraction of this capacity. Now, let's talk about his relationship to the feminine. He stops needing the feminine to complete him. And in that stopping, in that release of the desperate hunger, he becomes paradoxically more magnetic, more genuinely attractive. Not because he is performing desirability, but because he is whole. Because a whole man does not need anything from a woman that she cannot freely give. He can be in the presence of the feminine in all its forms, including its chaos, its depth, its darkness, its power, its grief, its rage, and remain grounded. Not because he is armored, because he has met all of that inside of himself and is no longer frightened of encountering it outside within the feminine. And lastly, in his leadership, this man finally can lead from love rather than fear, from genuine care for what he's building and the people in his care rather than from compulsive need to prove, to achieve, to compensate for that wound. The people around him feel the difference. They trust him differently, not because he is softer. He may be even fiercer in his clarity and his standards than he was before, but because they can feel that his strength now is not protecting something fragile. It is expressing something real, which again, this is what makes this man, when he's healed, a lot more powerful. So I want to be honest about something. Everything I've described in this video, the constancy principle, the death of the adolescence, the grieving, the integration, it cannot be reached through information alone. You can listen to all the videos and read all the books. You can journal about your mother wound and intellectually map your shadow expressions and understand blah, 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 blah. But you can still remain completely unchanged because the lover does not respond to information. He responds to experience, real experience, embodied, felt, often uncomfortable, the kind that requires a container strong enough to hold the truth of you while you face what you have been running from. So this is what initiation provides. Not inspiration, not insight, not a temporary emotional opening that closes again when you return to your ordinary life, but an actual crossing before and after, a reorganization at the level of the nervous system and the soul. In the ancient traditions, the ones I carry in my lineage as a priestess of the temple of Isis and Lilith, the initiation of the lover was never a solo journey. It required a container, a community, a challenge strong enough to crack the armor. And a feminine witness, that's the most important thing. The man needs a feminine witness and a container capable of seeing that man clearly and to mirror his shadows. This cannot be done by other men, only by women. The wound and the greatness simultaneously that she can bring out in him, and refusing to look away from either. So because the lover wound was formed in relationship to the feminine, and the lover's integration happens in relationship to the feminine as well. Not in a romantic sense, in a sacred sense, in a sense of being witnessed by a feminine presence that has no agenda except truth, that does not need you to perform or provide or be anything rather than completely, honestly real. That experience for many men is the first time that the lover has ever felt safe enough to exist. So once he has felt that safety, once he has experienced being fully seen and not destroyed by it, he cannot unfeel it anymore, and that makes him free. So, I want to end this here, and I hope that this series helped you. We're going to continue with the other archetypes in the next weeks, and if you are interested in working with me, you can join the Godman program, and the Godman program is a one-on-one work that I do with men. The Threshold Men's Retreat is closed for 2026. You can still sign up to the list and book an interview and sign yourself up to the next year to the men's group, it's always going to change. The initiation changes depending on the collective consciousness that we are and where we're at and what we're supposed to be doing. So please add yourself to the list because these will change rapidly. So I love you all so much. If this series changed something in you or you feel the pull for anything, please contact me and share this with a friend, share this with a brother. We really need you, brothers, to be in your power and in your fullness. And I speak as a woman. I speak as your sister. I speak as the embodiment of the mother. We need you in your power. I love you all so much. Please subscribe, like, and share so I can continue making these videos and share the work of the temple. And may the goddess bless you all.